The Wild Tameless is about expanding our sphere of awareness into greater fields of consciousness. Our guests share their wisdom found from branching out into the unseen realms through alternative philosophy and mystical experiences. We focus on the soul component of the human experience and also touch on mind, body, and heart as we introduce pragmatic practices to create a meaningful and fulfilling life. We touch on modalities of health, ceremony, and ritual to help people harmonize their own energy and open up to the magic around them. The Wild Tameless is nature. It's the human spirit. It's music, art, and creation itself. This podcast is about helping people open to the great mystery so that we can collectively remember our place in the web of life and reorient our way forward for generations to come. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Kyle Dow. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this episode of The Wild Tameless. Today I have the pleasure of being joined in conversation by my friend Tass, and I met her through her daughter, Farah, and I'm just inspired by this woman and how she walks in the world and how she carries this earth wisdom and also seeks to promote it and propagate it. And that's something that she also instilled in her daughter, Farah. So two very strong and inspiring women. This is Tass's bio here. Reverend Tass, Two Crows Flying, is a shamanic practitioner and minister of Church of the Earth. She has a deep reverence for this beautiful planet and all life that the Mother supports. Nature is her heaven. She has studied with many practitioners over a period of 30 years and most recently with Grandmother Robin Youngblood. She has been schooled to follow Robin's lineage, which is Okanagan Native American. She has also completed her African traditional herbal medicine training. She also holds a certification in Eco Pyshchology. Previously from Scarborough, Cape Town, her practice currently is in White Rock, Vancouver, where she heads the directorship of Church of the Earth. Church of the Earth is a non-denominational community of people dedicated to sharing the beliefs and principles of Indigenous, eco, and earth-based spirituality in order to awaken the family of humanity to its responsibilities to steward the earth and honor the connections between all beings and assist all creatures to live in balance and harmony. She is the founder of Right Relations School of Transformation, a 9-month-long journey of deep discovery, finding your ecological self in peace in these times of crisis. And a new take is coming up very shortly on May 13th. So if that calls to you, you can connect with her at info@right-relation.org. All this information will be in the show notes, so you could check it out there. She also offers retreats, vision quests, medicine walks, and is also a pipe carrier. Tass's private practice uses shamanic healing tools such as medicine drum journeys, soul retrievals, cleansing and clearing auras, and chakra balancing. Her website, once again, right-relation.org. You could find her on Instagram, Tass, 2 S's, Tass, 2 Crows Flying. I hope you enjoy the show. It was definitely a wonderful conversation. She drops us into a deep and connected space right from the get-go. And I know in our modern world, we all like to multitask and listen to podcasts while we're doing other things. But perhaps you could find yourself in a state of stillness in order to fully receive the medicine of this show. Please enjoy, and as always, I welcome your feedback, likes, and shares. All right, welcome everyone to this episode of The Wild Tameless, and it is my great pleasure and privilege to have with me my dear friend Tass. Welcome, Tass.
So good to be here, Kyle. What a lovely surprise to have asked me to come and speak today. I really honor your work. I really honor your journey. And it's been such a pleasure to see the absolute beautiful growth that has happened in you in this short, 3 years, 4 years now that I've known you. So I'm really honored to be here today.
Yeah, thank you. I feel some warmth and some pleasant emotion in hearing that reflection. And before we get too ahead of ourselves, would you like to open the space for us?
Yeah. So if you could just like put your feet on the ground, everybody. If you're lying down, just relax your shoulders, clench your jaw, and take a deep breath in. And let's call in the elementals. Those beings whom life cannot be without. Those beings that we need to honor every single day of our lives. So I call in the spirit and the elementals of air. That one that is with us from the moment that we die to the moment that we are born. And yes, I said it the other way around on purpose. Take a deep in-breath and become aware of the element of air that brings in the rising sun in the east, of vision, new creation, far looking, far seeing, and all the beings of the air, and specifically the eagle that flies high and sees far. May this conversation today give us all greater vision as we interact with heart. We ask the element of fire to be present, to hold space, that elemental that just dances in front of our eyes. That was our first technology. When we began to sit around the fire and tell stories and get to know about life, passion, and purpose. And the four-legged ones, we call them in. The little mouse that is able to see the micro of where we are at in the world. And may we use the mouse and the eagle as way showers for us, so that we may live in right relation. And water, that of the setting sun, the place of deep diving and washing clean and release. May you take us deep today. May our hearts be open to spirit, so that we can plumb the depths of our own mind and our souls that are so very present. And the invitation is for the swimming ones to join us now. The beings that inhabit the waters, including our cousins, the otter, the dolphins, the whales, the seals. We stand in liminal spaces. May we stand in them in right action. And that of our ancestors and Mother Earth and the trees and those that have come before us. And our Great Mother, whom we return to. And our divine masculine and feminine may it be present and be balanced. And of course our beautiful souls. That part of us that has agreed to be here in this human form right now. And so it is, and it is so. Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, that's really lovely. Thank you for dropping us in. And we're discussing a little bit the importance of having that intentionality in connection, in conversation. And I think for a lot of us, we reserve it for the ceremonial spaces and the ritualistic spaces that we enter, and we forget about it in our day-to-day experience. And perhaps you could speak a little bit to the importance of that.
Yeah. If we could live a ceremonial life and understanding how holy each moment is, then I think that we will begin to understand a whole lot more about living. It's all very well that we move from one ceremony to the other. And then we go about our day-to-day life and we step out of that. My invitation is always to try your utmost to enter into any social interaction, even in the street that you're walking down, the cashier at the checkout, your friends in a social situation, that we could take pause in proclaiming that moment as a holy moment. Yeah, walking down the street, maybe not so much, but how about keeping that within yourself and realizing that we are in fact all lighthouses. We have every single breathing moment of our lives an opportunity to drop into the space of holiness. So the invitation is to practice this with people whom we know, with our social interactions, and just genuinely reach out and hold their hands and look into their eyes and see that this is a holy moment, and that every being that we come across, every person, every creature, there's a moment of life that is springing between us, and that we can really see this as ceremony, because that's what life is. We've come here for a reason. And if anything, now more than ever in these times that we are living in, each and every one of us that is listening here today has come to Mother Earth at this time for a reason. And for those of us who are holding a conscious light to whatever we do, to honestly begin to take this a little bit more seriously and to bring more kindness and more holiness and more clarity to our every moment, that we, even on our own. On my WhatsApp, as my little bio there, I always say, just be kind. And that's the biggest invitation that we can bring to ourselves in the morning. When you look in the mirror, go, I love you. Just look at yourself and see how glorious you actually are, and drop the human stories and see the soul. Maybe don't pinch your friend's cheeks so much as you pinch your own, but connect with heart and connect with every moment being a holy moment.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful and meaningful intention, and no doubt challenging to do as we get caught up in our own stories of the ego and our illusions of imperfection, I suppose, of ourselves and the world. And so you've touched on the thread a little bit there of the soul versus the ego, and it also was mentioned in your opening prayer, this idea of arriving here on earth as a soul. And perhaps you could elaborate a little bit on your model of understanding of the journey of the soul and how that differentiates from the ego.
Ego is necessary because it's the thing that keeps us upright and interacting. And you get the differences of ego, of course. You get the egoic beings that we use the word in a negative manner. I prefer to use the word ego as one's persona. And if you are living in right relation and doing what I've just spoken about, then the ego becomes your persona. And then, what's the difference between that and your soul? If you're ever living in right relation and trying to be in right action, there should be no differentiation. Because the ego is showing up as the being as I am, bringing all my life experiences to this very, very moment. And my soul, that part of me that is from spirit should be the one that is leading the way. It is the one that's standing just in front of the ego and saying, what would my soul want? What is the thing that I'm here for? And that, of course, is an even bigger question of where do we fit in? And something that I've also really been thinking about a lot, and it goes with the question of what is soul and what is ego, is what I believe my soul, that essential core of mine, is the purest of me, is the purest of us. So the question is, what frequencies is your soul tuning into every single day? I believe that we are facing an existential crisis at the moment because of the too much of media and the too much of war, the too much of poor social interaction. So what diet are we on when it comes to tuning into soul frequency messages versus base, lower fear frequencies that seem to be all out and scrambling, as almost as if it's the last wave of fear-based living, sort of clinging by the nails of the excessive attention to war and poor political methods and poor social interactions and the constant us and them that has dogged humanity right from the very beginning. So if we can begin to understand that we have a choice in every single moment of which frequencies we need to tune into, that is going to be more soulful and more in right action and in harmonious living, going back to the kindness, and becoming maybe a little bit more discerning on what we consume from the external world.
Absolutely. I was having some good realizations there about my own patterns of fear in my life and the attempts of clinging to the known and controlling what is, which would be in resistance to change. And I think if we get to that place of trust, then we alleviate the fear and we're able to go with the flow a little bit more. And in this calling of initiations into soulful existence, there is a process of death and there is a process of letting go. And I think that is fear inducing. And so I wonder if you could speak a little bit to that tension of the ego that resists its calling and how perhaps we could overcome that.
The question to ask here, as my mind is now going in all sorts of different directions, but let me try and bring myself back to a very simple sentence. When has, and I think I like to, especially as humans, fear and anxiety are brothers and sisters. And I think that fear has anxiety attached to it. And therefore the word worry arises. And when has worry ever solved the problem? Things turn out as they are, right? And anxiety, if we can realize that in fact there's a certain amount of addiction to that feeling that is in our body, because we're so used to being fed fear, we're so used to being fed worry and anxiety, that this becomes a hook. And the Buddhist philosophy of Shenpa comes to mind now. Shenpa is becoming hooked, and Shenpa arises in social interactions when we feel we're not earning enough, when we feel we have trouble with relationships. We might become so caught up in the story of, they did this to me, or, oh my God, I'm not earning enough, and all those worldly things that dog us. But I think that we, and I'm speaking for myself too, are very addicted to the Shenpa of fear and anxiety. And then it actually goes back to what I was speaking about before. What if each and every one of us was having holy interaction with each other all the time? What if the workplace and the people that we worked with was having that kind of interactions all the time? I think that we could actually begin to change the world one person at a time. And the times that we are living in, I believe we have now more than ever, and because of internet and because of this moment in time with you and I speaking to each other in this medium. I am sitting here in White Rock, Vancouver, and you're in Squamish, right? It's like we're in the same room. And that's the thing. We're in the same room worldwide. Our spirits do not know the disconnection. And I'm just writing a little bit of sage here, because we have come to a place of such an existential crisis that we don't realize that we are becoming hooked, Shenpa, into the whole world's crisis. So it's also important to begin to see that whatever is happening to us is the micro of the macro. And this gives rise to maybe some even more deep thought about, is this my anxiety? When you place your hands on your abdomen and your gut, because that's your power center, is this mine exactly? Is this mine? Really have a look at it. With the African traditional teachings that I was taught with, well, as I said, if you wake up with a worry, it's yours. But if you find a worry during the day, it might not be. So that may lead us on to another topic of protection teachings. How do we go about ensuring that as empaths, because I think every single person on this planet is an empath that doesn't realize it, how do we go about ensuring that we don't become hooked into something else that's possibly not our own? Well, protection practices can be as simple as you ensuring that when you wake up in the morning, you become aware of your energy field that is as wide as what your arms are. And checking in with your energy field and asking that energy field of yours to be the barrier between you and the world. Now, barrier does not mean not letting other good things come in towards you, but protection really is about being mindful and prayerful about your boundaries. And your boundaries are also energetic. Have you cleaned your aura lately? Have you checked in with what has been happening around you? And are you asking for help? Now, as a shamanic practitioner, I know that each and every one of us have guides. And those guides are there to help us as well. And it's another invitation to find somebody to help you see who your guides are. They can be beings from another place. They can be animals. They can be ancestors even. But also, protection means going about your life prayerfully and inviting that kind of frequency to surround you. If you are surrounded by that peace, you are emanating a frequency of protection. And if you are in utter peace with yourself, we have seen really great teachers able to do this. Gandhi comes to mind, Nelson Mandela comes to mind, and many of the lamas from the Buddhist teachings, and the granny in the kitchen, the other ordinary people in the park that are sitting there. The frequency of love and love of self is probably the biggest protection you can ever have. So there's so much to be said about being aware of love, being aware of kindness towards self. And absolutely, I was taught a trick. I don't know about you, but if you go into the streets or malls, I feel the energy quite frenetic. So I simply use a phrase. I take this energy that has come towards me, I bless and transform it and return it to you. Simple. And it keeps us in the holy moment. So you have an opportunity to have protection wherever you go. If you realize, I have a choice to bless and transform this thing that I'm feeling now. And I return it to whoever or wherever it's coming from. And of course, protection teachings go into the ceremonial space too. And I feel that many people don't have enough discernment of when they go into ceremonial space because they're also hungry for wanting to connect and wanting to find teachers, that they forget that the teacher is not the one that holds space, he is the one that holds space. I'm sure you have experience with that.
Yeah, a little bit, for sure. There's some wonderful awareness there that you just shared around discernment of our own energetic fields and ways to really hone in on it. And it seems like there's a paradox in there, in the sense that, yeah, the whole world, well, first of all, it seems that suffering is baked into the human experience, and that's probably away with. It seems like it is purposeful. And we don't want to completely shut out the suffering of others or the world, because then we become isolated in our individualistic ways and we're not inspired to create change. So it seems like there's a sweet spot of balance of having the awareness of the suffering of the world and also not getting crushed by it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what some of these greats you spoke about have been able to do. And
Yeah.
It's Ram Dass phrase comes to mind. The like unbearable compassion, the unbearable compassion of the world, but being able to find ways to reset ourselves so we don't drown in it. And I think a great way to find our center and to familiarize ourselves with our energy so we can discern it from everything else is really in retreating to nature and going there for the rejuvenation and the holding and the care, the tender care of the Great Mother. And I
Yeah.
know you're...
Yeah. It's very curious. I was living in a beautiful place called Souk. I'm going to tell you a bit of a story now. I was living on Vancouver Island in a place called Souk, and I was really connecting beautifully to the water spirits there in the forest, and really absolutely loving it. But then my 6 months tenancy came up, and I was finding difficulty, as so many people here in British Columbia and I think across Canada are finding, and possibly worldwide, yes, in finding accommodation that didn't take all of one's earnings away. And I was struggling to find a place. And then my girlfriend said, well, I know this is a big one, but move in with me. I have a home, I have space, and considering that you've just immigrated, just come here, just relax somatically and allow yourself to be. And she lives here in a city situation. Although I do have a huge urban forest that is a couple of blocks, which I disappear into often, and the beach is close to. So I went to the river and I said, okay, fine. A couple of weeks ago, I asked, please help me find a place to live. Now, why must I go to the city? Because I've been living in wild places for the past 15 years. And spirit, the water spirits and spirit, there's no differentiation. But to me, it was the water spirits that came to me and said, you have to go and do prayers for rivers. You have to go to the mainland and pray for the rivers that are flowing out of that great city. You have to gather people. And you have to, it's not just the cleanup, it's the spirit of the water. It's the elementals. And, okay, good enough answer. And so here I find myself in a city situation. And I have to now up my game to connect. So I met the Fraser River 2 weeks ago. What a glorious being. Snaking its way through this great city. I met the beings of the river in a place called Fort Langley, which is paradoxically a very colonial spot of founding. And that in itself irked me, because I'm also a foreigner in an indigenous land. And I went down to the river, and the cars were going past, helicopters overhead, speedboat up and down the river. And it was just, trying to push through, connecting. And then I just somatically relaxed my body and thought to myself, hey, I'm human, I'm magic, I can go back in time. And the word that came to me is the river is eternal. And I went back in time in my mind to when it was just the water lapping and the forest breathing and the birds singing. And then I added the indigenous people, and the same symphony was played. Then I added the colonists, the colonizers, us, my ancestry, and the noise began and the river became silent. But that is what I thought. And the river so clearly spoke to me that I am eternal. I am still pristine. I want you to see that. And the same goes for the forest. And the same goes for the field. We have constant opportunity to connect to Mother Earth and see her pristineness exactly where we are. And something happens when we do that. I'm fighting for the river, or I'm fighting for the forest. In the words of John Seed, becomes, I'm not fighting for the river or the forest, I'm actually fighting for myself. I'm realizing that I am at one with this being, be it Mother Earth as a whole, or just the place that you're sitting at right now on the beach. And when we realize that utter beauty of oneness never fails to move me to tears, because that's who we are. God, you and me, we're at one. That plant behind you, we're at one. And if we begin to allow ourselves, no matter where we are, whether we are in an urban environment or we are in the beautiful wilds, and I think that we are one, that this is not separate from us, perhaps we will become even more mindful then of not cutting our fingers off and not suffocating ourselves and not drowning ourselves in poor stewardship of this planet. I think it was in 2021 when I visited my daughter Farah in Squamish. I was living with her for a short while. The snow had come down, and I was in a loft room where I had a little window with the Douglas fir standing with its arms as it does, it's standing there. And every morning I would wake up and ask the Douglas fir, what must I do? What must I know? And because I'm dense and take a while before I can actually hear, and it takes a bit of practice, it took a couple of weeks before I really heard what the Douglas fir had to say. And I woke one morning, and there was the fir standing with arms in the air, limbs. I know I'm humanizing a tree, but it's the way it works. And this beautiful being said to me, Tass, just sing praises to all of creation and be in service. That's all you have to do. And that means connecting soul to soul, creature to creature, tree to tree, and to this incredible being that we've been drawn to come back again and again.
Beautiful. And in that I'm hearing, maintaining that vibration of peace, holding that ground. And also in your story of standing by the river in the city and seeing all the things that distract us from that peace, the ever-present peace. And that's the test, it seems like. And to be able to be peaceful in a controlled environment is really only the illusion of peace. But to maintain peace in a dysregulated environment, that's true mastery. And it's like the tale of the monk who meditates in the cave until he reaches enlightenment, and then he comes down to the village and the marketplace, and somebody steps on his foot, and he raises his cane, his walking stick, to hit the man, and then he stops him.
Yeah, we all have an opportunity every single day to be bodhisattvas, to maintain that peace and to emanate that kindness and to go about our world. Take the cave with you. And this doesn't separate us or put us apart from other people. We're still going to be feeling the feelings. We're still going to be having the empathy of suffering and compassion. But we're not going to be so much hooked into the story of it. Because how much of that is an illusion in our minds, what is being presented? Because whoever we meet as humans, as fellow humans, I always imagine this funnel of information behind them, of where they have been, who their ancestors are, and why they are presenting what is in front of me right now. And if we can be mindful of the person that's cutting in front of us in the traffic, it's like, bless you, you must have had a really shit morning. Or, my goodness, there's always an opportunity to not necessarily condone behavior, but to see the reason why. And that can unhook us from our own story. Because often what other people might be directing towards us, or we're in the field of what they're directing, such as the car cutting in front of us, is that it's that thing that's happening is more about them than it is about us. And for us to be able to just replace and transform this energy that has come to me, and I return it to you in a blessed way. Every moment is an opportunity to become a bodhisattva, to be the soulful person that we have. And it's hard, it's difficult. I'm not saying that it's easy. And it's easy to sit here in this peaceful place and talk about it now. But I might walk up the road to the forest now and someone might step on my foot. And I might have a reaction. But let's take the cave with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it comes down to, what are we doing to cultivate that cave? I don't think we arrive there without intentionality, unless we are one of the true avatars that have graced humanity, and those have been few and too far between. And it seems like we're coming upon an age where they might return en masse and get us to a place of critical mass where we can then collectively make that transition. And here's to praying, and it's up to us each individually to cultivate that practice, to find our center, and to find, I think one of the key ingredients is finding peace with impermanence. So recognizing our own impermanence, the impermanence of every situation, and allowing that to be the foundation that alleviates fear, so that we may move fluidly with the river of life, and recognizing every state as being part of the cycle. And we might have a preference as to what state of the cycle we like to be in, usually spring and flourishing and liveliness versus the death and incubation of fall and winter, but it's all part of it.
You're touching on something that is so very important there, Kyle. My honest belief, and I think there's many other teachers out there that are saying the same thing. I mean, I stand on the shoulders of giants here. I have a little bit of experience because of life and the teachings that have been handed to me. Is that the chaos theory, as you know it well, quantum physics, the 100 monkey theory, I think most of us know about that. And that critical mass, I think we're very, very close. Because now more than ever, because of the internet and the world becoming smaller, now more than ever we are really beautifully aware of the fact that we are in a time of many people awakening. And I even think that the strangeness that occurred in 2020 was, to me, a divine time for us to be able to see the shadow and the light so clearly. Now more than ever, our discernment has become much more clear-cut of the fear-based ruling that has been on this planet for too long, and the opportunity of, we're not going to do that anymore. And many people waking up and saying, hang on, I'm not going to be part of that anymore. And I think that there's been a great deal of souls that have said, no, I need to live differently. And there's a great uprising now. And I think the next 5 years are going to be very, very interesting. I've just got that, I hate to call it a prophecy feeling, but I think that we might be tipping the other way. The way that we're talking about, the place that we strive to be in. That place of unity and kindness and connection to all our relations.
I'm excited to see what happens, and I don't anticipate fruitful on the other side.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear more about something you
Yeah. There's not much that I can say about it because the teachings are considered to be secret. But I was trained as an ecological, which is a plant medicine person. We're often called sangomas, yes. It's the common term. It's like calling people shamans when they're medicine people. This is a term that we use. But I can tell you that the training that I received as an African traditional healer brought me closer to spirit than any other schools of thought that I have encountered in my lifetime. And I've been living a different life since I was born, because I was born being able to see auras and I see dead people. Yeah. And the training, the African traditional training, was so much being left on my own, because the teacher would say, this is the plant. And I think there's an arbutus painting. I think that's an arbutus behind me. Let's take the arbutus as an example. The teacher would say, this is the plant, the tree. It has these medicine properties. And you must now go and find this plant in the wild. Once you've found this plant, you must speak to it and you must find out its medicinal properties, because the teacher would only give that much of the medicinal properties. And it as a doorway. And spend time with that plant and connect to its spirit. And that plant then will tell you where your next ceremony is, because there were 4 ceremonies: ceremony of spirit, ceremony of water, the ceremony of the forest, and then the final fire ceremony. And my second ceremony, the ceremony of water, it took me months to connect with the plant and to find it. So I had to be in a prayerful space and direct connection with Spirit all that time. Lead me to this plant. And I found it. And I had to ingest it in a specific way in the morning of the ceremony. And the plant said, you must go to that and that beach. I knew exactly where it was. And on the morning of the ceremony, I remembered the words of many of the Sangomas who said, never go into this ceremony on your own because the waters will take you. I didn't understand it until I stepped into the ocean and I disappeared. I was in utter oneness with the blueness of Mother Earth. If it weren't for my teacher calling my name in the background, I would have stayed there because it was such a place of bliss. So my African traditional ceremony teachings brought me to a place of such deep understanding of our humanity and of how much we need medicine people in this time. Because in the final ceremony, during a specific place and space of where something happened, I felt like I was standing in the center with my hands in the past and my hands in the future, realizing that these ancient ceremonies that the indigenous people have brought to us, which we as Caucasians and white people have completely lost, are so necessary for these times. And that ceremony is eternal, like the river is.
Yeah, I love that. And that, I think that brings us into awareness of the eternal game. And then we don't get caught up in the tension that we experience within the cycles of life. And the recognition of the eternal influences how we play this game. Yeah, the infinite game, as it's called by James Carse. And as it seems like there's many roads to go down in this conversation. And also, I'm keeping an eye on time a little bit here. And this wonderful work that you just alluded to and the training that you have, I know that you now share it with others.
Yes.
And
Yes, thank you for
do you want
that,
to share
Carl.
about that?
I think I introduced myself properly at the beginning. I'm Tass. My medicine name is Two Crows Flying. There's a story with that too, but we won't go into that now. And I am Reverend of Church of the Earth Society, Director of Church of the Earth Society Canada. And I bring my own teachings of the right relation, School of Transformation. And I have a 9-month journey coming up, starting on the 13th of May. It's a deep commitment to us learning about ourselves and about our ecological self. And I dive into topics such as the witch wound. What is our ecological self? Terror psychology, and many other really deep and different types of teachings that are bringing more people towards themselves. So that's kicking off on the 13th of May. And I'm also teaching Path of the White Wolf. That's going to be starting at the end of May as well. The date hasn't been announced yet. So I'm starting a new class there. And that is Robin Youngblood, my teacher and mentor, a Cherokee Okanagan teacher, whom I love dearly and whom you also know. And these are her teachings that I bring as well. So you're welcome to connect with me to learn a little bit more. And I believe you're going to be using my bio, and my information will be in there as well.
Wonderful. yeah, I look forward to you bringing your gifts to the world, and interesting that you've arrived on these lands after all your journeys throughout your life. And no doubt it's a fated arrival, and I'm sure you could do some wonderful work here
Thank you.
on these lands and in the city, and bringing that cave with you wherever you go.
May
And
I
I'm just
succeed.
noticing on the, pardon me?
May I succeed.
Yeah, may we all succeed. Is that your book?
Probably going to show the wrong way around. It's in the basket. You've heard the story.
It's in a basket.
Yeah. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's an adult story and poem about how we can find our way back to ourselves by honoring the trees. So it's for anyone that is from 0 to 100. This book will do it for you. It's my one publication that's up at the moment. There's 2 others that are going to be up on Amazon soon. And yeah, that's my pride and joy. That's happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's really a wonderful book, and it has some amazing illustrations, and it's kind of like a children's book for adults.
That's right. It's got some beautiful illustrations. The artist, the artist is Anya Kotsuba. Incredible being. We were so lucky to work with her because she found the book to be a catharsis of her own. And there's a bit of humor in there too. Where you've got the crows disappearing down the toilet. Your narrative of half woman, flush it down the toilet, dance around it, light a candle, do something. Dive right in and dive right out. Make a shift, don't swim in it. Wallow is not a good energy. Wallowing in a toilet is especially bad. That's where the shapeshifters drown.
So there's a beautiful poetic and lyrical flow, deep and meaningful lessons in that book.
Yes, thank you for that, Carl.
You're welcome.
It's been such a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, and perhaps one of many. Perhaps you'll come back and share.
The most overarching thought right now, and it's something that I say to everybody, and they might begin to get tired of me saying it. That's just too bad. The words that you say of the house that you live in, and that's not my words. This is from the poet Hafiz. So beware of what you're thinking and be aware of what you're saying, because that becomes who you are. So be vigilant all the time. Take the cave with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tass.
Thank you. And in this moment, we can thank the elementals for having held space for us, for our Mother Earth, for the trees and the skyfall, the waterfall, the river, the stream, the ocean, for the fire that connects our souls, and to the air we breathe and our souls, our divine masculine and feminine, for holding space. And so it is. Thank you, Kyle.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Take care, you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment, and perhaps sharing with others. And if you are curious about some of the services I offer, you can check out my website, connectionintegration.com. You'll see on there that I offer one-on-one support and guidance based around spiritual and mental wellness. I also offer nature connection experiences and plant medicine retreats throughout the year. Until next time, wishing you much curiosity, wonder, and peace as you open yourself up to the wild, tameless. Be well.